Hello, everyone. So, today I would like to address several allegations that have been made against me in the past 2 days. Um, my goal is to separate um, what's true from what's lies, what's false. And I also want to apologize to anyone who's been harmed by any statements that I've made in the past. So, before we start, um, I just want to say that a lot of people have asked me, like, why did you delete your tweets? Why did you like private your videos? I received I was doing okay, but I started receiving really hurtful Twitter messages. I started seeing people posting about personal information, and it was incredibly stressful to me. And so that's part of the reason that I've taken so long to put this together. Um, and basically, I felt like I wanted to like nuke everything because I didn't want people to, I don't know, find personal information or anything like that. So I don't think that was the best response. I think it made me look more guilty, and I understand that. But I I think it's a I guess I don't know what else to say, but it's a natural response. I think in I guess more or less the panic I was in to seeing so much personal information shared. So with that said, I've attempted to compile a whole lot of pictures about the various allegations made against me. So I want to start out with the one that I consider to be real and hurtful and worth apologizing for in totality. So this is the allegation that I posted bigoted statements in the Destiny Discord server in 2019 and early 2020. And I think this one is accurate. Um, I I don't have like a deep apology for these. I don't want to say that they're false. I don't want to pin the blame on anyone else. Um, I just um, I just basically want to look through some examples, explain why they're problematic, why I've moved away from that rhetoric, that language, and I guess just offer my apologies. So I, the first, I guess what I would, as context, I would say that um, these statements are not my genuine beliefs. I had extremely edgy humor. I joined. That's not an excuse. I joined a Discord to debate fascists, um, and as a result, a lot of my rhetoric and a lot of my early conversations were against fascism. Um, so all of these, regardless of how poorly they got there, were intended, I think, to oppose like race realism, to oppose fascism. So some of these are simple shock humor. Um, sorry, I should be clear. Some of these were just like jokes, or were just making statements that were just like bigoted or shock humor. These were not like not all of these statements were like very high-minded intellectual ways to try and take out the fascist threat or whatever. But I, constantly back in the day, I was in the mindset of like opposing fascism, and it was what I was researching, what was on my mind. Um, so I guess that's the context that I'll give there. I think that some of these things, for example, this statement um, that for years the Jews have thieved neurons from whites and injected them into their tits. I think there's plenty of statements like this that I think are pretty fairly obviously shock humor and not worth believing. So I think these faded away pretty quickly. These are not what people are worried about. The much worse statements are ones like this. So in this one, I say, blacks have big lips because they need more surface area when they suck a homie's big black cock. This is evolutionary science. Please to smash like and subscribe. This, I think, is pretty obviously objectionable. This is unacceptable. I don't support this. The context that I would give to this to try and explain why I'm saying, hey, this is evolutionary science, please to smash like and subscribe, is that we were talking about a race realist YouTuber called Jean-Francois Gariepi. And his theory and the theory of a whole lot of race realists is that there's something called RK selection, and that certain people are just innately more sexual because, again, of the RK theory, there's like a psychology of it, and so they think that certain like races of people are just innately more sexual, and it's just obvious bullshit. I won't get too much into the details of it, but RK theory would predict that as people got richer, they have more children. The exact opposite is the case. So the point here, this is an example where I think context adds like the tiniest bit of charity, was to try and critique race realist views about like race and sexuality. However, I think that again, this statement is like grossly unacceptable, and so I don't think that it's worth. I just want to apologize for anyone who's harmed by statements like this, because I don't think that these are acceptable. So similarly, a statement that got some play. Some people said, some people quoted this. So I said that in America, black people are shorter and fatter than white people. The context of this again is race realism. It's that people will say things like, "Oh, black people are like genetically predisposed towards like athletic like ability." And so even people who are liberals will sometimes say stuff like this, and I think it's actually really harmful that they say things like this. So the immediate context of this is that I post things like this: as South Koreans have risen in income, they have grown to almost the height of Americans. This is true. The biggest predictor of height and size is not race. It's nothing to do with ethnicity. It's income, basically. It's nutrition. Similarly, there's this study, which I posted, which formally quantifies this. This is, I think, an old study, and it found that, quote, ancestry can only explain 2 to 4% of the differences in size of babies. So not only is this something that we observe in adults, but it's something we observe in infants as well. So I think these messages are that like that the message about height is towards the like justifiable side. The message about like lips is clearly in the unjustifiable side. And there's messages that I don't think any context can make acceptable, like or even affect whatsoever. So for example, this statement I think is totally unacceptable. And were I participating in one of my communities today, I would probably have like banned or muted myself. I don't think that statements like this are acceptable. Similarly, I would often use like the phrase blacks instead of black people. I don't think this is acceptable. I don't think that it's acceptable to like talk about people as like monoliths or groups of people as monoliths, as if like everyone in the group all fits those characteristics. I don't think that this kind of rhetoric is acceptable. So I just really want to drive home that I don't support these statements. And I really want to apologize to anyone who was hurt by seeing these statements. I know there are many more statements like this. So I just want to apologize for all of them. I think that the last statement that got a lot of attention was this one, that I said, quote, black nationalism is also cancer. And this is one that I have more recently developed a lot on, because I started, where is it? I started reading like Franz Fanon. I've been starting to read, I'll be honest, I've only got to the Sartre intro of The Wretched of the Earth. And I've started reading black nationalist literature, and I had been of the view, and this is white ignorance on my part, that black nationalism is more or less equivalent to black separatism. And I don't believe that. I want to reject that view that I held in the past, that black nationalism is equivalent to separatism. There's like a large literature that I've been introduced to by black nationalists and by people who support black nationalism. And I have like totally changed my views on that topic. So in short, I guess I just want to say, like, again, I don't think these statements are acceptable. I'm trying to totally own that I said these, and that I don't think that I should have. I don't think that I understood the ramifications of saying that at the time. And I do now. And I just apologize as much as I possibly can. I will just like to say that I think it is totally valid to critique me for these statements. I think it is totally valid to be uncomfortable even with me for these statements. It is not your duty to trust me because I like am disavowing these old statements. It's not your duty to like trust the white guy who made edgy racist statements in the past. It's my duty to try and earn it back from you. So I'm not, you know, I guess I'm just trying to say that I think it is totally fine to be unsatisfied with this alone. I need to like demonstrate improvement. So the things that I'm going to try and do going forward to improve, like I said, I'm literally reading Black nationalist literature. I actually started that right before these things came out publicly. I am going to be trying to have more conversations with Black creators and even potentially Black nationalist creators. And I know that in particular, I am trying to look into the history of the struggles and the repression that Black Americans have faced in the United States. So I just want to say that I think it's my duty to try and win back your trust. So it's entirely valid to be distrustful of me as a result of these statements.